Good morning, everybody. Tobin here with you in the wee hours of the morning. Thought it was going to be a lot more wee hours in the morning. I got stuck in the stairway at my studio offices today, which can only mean a couple of things. I'm either secretly fired because my key card doesn't work, or it's just old as hell. I'm not sure which one it is, but we'll have more reaction to that, I'm sure, on the radio program today. Of course, the news yesterday that swept over the NBA was that Kevin Durant and the Brooklyn Nets have come to an agreement. They put out a joint statement yesterday. Let me get this puppy out here for you. The following statement has been released by General Manager Sean Marks. Sounds like something that comes on at like 3 a.m. Steve Nash and I, together with Joe Tsai, Clara Wu Tsai, met with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman in Los Angeles yesterday. We have agreed to move forward with our partnership. We are focused on basketball with one collective goal in mind: build a lasting franchise to bring a championship to Brooklyn. And it is signed there by the Brooklyn Nets logo and the boardroom logo. So Kevin Durant, for now, off the market. He is going to be on the Brooklyn Nets going into training camp. This, of course, was the big thing is, I think, his last play where it was all made public about whether or not he was, going to come into training camp. His last-ditch effort was meeting with him in London and telling him that it's either me or them. And then Joe Tsai comes out and says, not doing that. And so here it is. They call Kevin Durant's bluff. Clearly, Kevin Durant wasn't going to hold out. And the last report that we got, we kind of went over it earlier in the week, and they mentioned the Heat as a serious threat still to get KD, but they had not offered Bam Adebayo. And based on all of the deals that are out there, between the Boston Celtics, between the Toronto Raptors, between the Memphis Grizzlies. The Memphis Grizzlies one was funny because they come out with that report that day, and it's like, oh, Grizzlies, 5 first-round picks, but they're not going to offer Jaren Jackson. They're not going to offer Desmond Bane. We know that they're not going to offer Ja Morant. So, what are they offering for Kevin Durant? A haul of draft picks. So, you kind of got the feeling, okay, none of these teams are going to overspend where the Brooklyn Nets want, because the Brooklyn Nets are going to want a seismic call, because it's very embarrassing if they lose Kevin Durant. It's embarrassing, sure, for Kevin Durant right now, because he's got to go back, basically tail between his legs, and go back to the team that he doesn't want to be there with. But it's also embarrassing for the front office, because you don't want to be the team that got James Harden, Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, gave them everything they wanted, and they still left. So I think a lot of things probably played into this. I'm sure other owners were pressuring Joe Tsai, and that they would say, don't lose. They're telling Joe Tsai, don't you get Kevin Durant on a 4-year deal and then lose him. Don't you lose. And he didn't, for now. This all seems like it's going to be the way it's going to be for a while, and that it probably will take either the Nets getting into some turmoil or another team getting desperate enough to move for him. But as of right now, everybody's optimistic. Everybody's going into the year, and that's that with KD. Did get into a little bit of a back and forth with Patrick Beverley, where he says, y'all can sit, don't say nothing, but it ain't cool. It's dudes' families out here who haven't gotten a job because of this KD bleep. And to be on and off ain't cool. Blessing, gang. And then Kevin Durant added, #blame KD. And then Patrick Beverley claims that he wasn't talking about Kevin Durant afterwards. They have a little back and forth that's going on there. But, this is, I won't say it's surprising. I think that we started seeing that this was where it was going to go when there weren't any teams that were going to give the Nets what they want. I think from the Heat's perspective, they made their stance known pretty early on in this, that they were not going to give up Bam Adebayo for Kevin Durant. That if Kevin Durant was going to come to the Miami Heat, remember there was reports early on, he didn't want to come to the Heat unless they had Jimmy, Bam, and Kyle Lowry, which, it wasn't possible then to trade for him, but let's just say it was just Jimmy and Bam. I agree. I don't think you make that deal unless you have Jimmy and Bam on the team, because I don't think you make this deal unless it makes you a guaranteed title contender. The Heat were just a game, a shot away from the NBA Finals. You need to have a guarantee upgrade if you're going to make a move like, trading for Kevin Durant. And I don't think, if you don't have Jimmy and Bam on there, I don't think that guarantee is there. And so I'm fine with the Heat not putting Bam on the table. Bam's 25 years old. He's just getting better every single year. He's the best defensive player in the league. His offense keeps getting better every single year. He's never going to be Kevin Durant offensively. He is as special as it gets defensively. Jimmy Butler is your star. I think people need to start appreciating that in this franchise about what that guy brings to the table, especially in the postseason. But I get it. Look, I love sharpening the harpoons. I love going for the whale hunt. I love the fact that the Heat will always try and be in the game for the superstar. But superstars are hard to trade for. They're hard to trade for, and they're certainly in a position where, the Heat don't have the most draft assets possible. Do they start gathering that as this goes on, whether it's, trading other pieces, maybe some of the young guys to gather more assets if there is a potential move down the line? Maybe that is what they do. They start loading up the war chest a little bit more, but I think ultimately you started knowing a while ago, once the Heat started putting out the narrative that they like their team and they put it known that they're not trading Bam, that the Kevin Durant thing was probably unlikely. Even with all the Shams updates. Look, new details kept leaking with Jaylen Brown stuff and the Memphis Grizzlies stuff, but nothing really seemed to change as far as this was concerned. It just was a matter of how much of a stink could Kevin Durant make. He made about as a big a stink you can make without sitting out. And now I think the interesting part for the Miami Heat and their piece of business is, what do they do with Tyler Herro's extension? That I think is the interesting thing here. He is, eligible for this extension. How much are they going to offer? You can either offer the 5-year max, or it could be 4 years and, probably $100+ million. And, I was asking this yesterday on social media, and, I got some feedback from fans that are like, he's got to do it in the playoffs first. He's got to prove himself in the playoffs. And I get it. Tyler had a bad playoffs last year. Had a bad playoffs and a banged-up playoffs. And I think was certainly even a bigger disappointment than Kyle Lowry to a degree, even though he was dealing with stuff because he got, pushed around. But teams really were game planning for him. I think that's one of the things that fans do have to realize is that they made it a key point to take him out of these games. And then by the end of the Celtics series, he wasn't even able to play because he was so banged up. So I think that shows the kind of threat that people think that he is offensively. It's now upon him, 22 turning 23, can he take that leap? But here's where I stand on it with people who don't want to give him an extension. I think that's a dangerous game to play because, all right, we've clearly seen around the league, people don't look at Tyler Herro as this elite asset, right? They don't look at him in the realm of these other young guys where they feel like, oh, that's a real blue chip guy, which, I disagree with. I mean, he was 6th man of the year. He was electric. He had a very good all-star case this past year. Does he have his flaws as a player? Certainly does. I mean, the defensive ones are obvious, but I think there are many guards in this league that stink defensively, especially at his age. He's a very good rebounder. He's a very improved passer. He's obviously a dangerous scorer. And the postseason stuff does have to improve. But he is 22 years old also. And we've seen him at 19 years old do some incredible things in the postseason. People will call him Bubble Boy and all that type of stuff. Doesn't matter. As a teenager on biggest stage, he was having, the snarl game in the finals, having 37 points in an Eastern Conference Finals. So it's not like the guy's a choke artist. I think we know that the guy is a capable scorer late. But I think for you as a franchise, this guy has been a model for everything that you want in a young player. Has been open that he wants to start, but came off the bench all last year, did it better than anybody had done it, winning an obvious route to 6th man of the year. And so what does that earn as a reward? Like all of these franchises, whether you be like, the Kings with De'Aaron Fox or any of these franchises with their young stars or borderline all-stars, Darius Garland, all these type of guys, what do you put forth as like, we're going to invest in this guy? We kind of saw this bite the Suns in the ass, right? Like they did this with DeAndre Jordan. They played DeAndre Ayton, excuse me. And they played the game with him where it's like, we don't think he's a max player. And they let him get to restricted free agency, and he got offered a max contract, and they ended up having to keep him because they don't want to lose the asset for nothing. but it ended up taking him out of a superstar sweepstakes, which maybe it would have been enough to get Kevin Durant. Now, based on what they were asking for Kevin Durant, maybe not, but it took him out of the game completely, at least for a little bit. So I think that it is important for the Miami Heat to give Tyler Herro his extension. I don't think he's going to get a max. I don't think that he's shown himself quite to be a max player, but I don't think it's out of the realm that he wouldn't sign for less than the max. I think a 4-year, probably more than what Anthony Simons got, like $100 million contract. I feel like he would agree to that. I think it's very hard as a player at his age to get to turn down $100+ million guaranteed. I think that's lunacy. So I think that it is important for them to sign that extension for Tyler Herro because, one, I think it shows that you believe in your player. I think if you are sitting here in a situation where you don't sign Tyler Herro, even though the extension makes things tougher to deal him, I think the league looks around and be like, well, if the Heat don't believe in Tyler Herro, why are we going to believe in Tyler Herro? Why are we going to believe in, this boy wonder who's going to go out there and be this so-called star, be the center of any trade package or any of that type of stuff? So I think it sends the message to Tyler, one, you believe in him and that you believe in his abilities and that you take care of your players just like you did with Bam Adebayo. I think that it also shows the league like, no. We believe in this guy as a player. So, look, if this ever does come to the situation where you do want to end up dealing him or flipping him for a superstar, then, you've at least sent the signal to the league, we believe in this guy. And I also do think that, you're going to see these numbers go pretty crazy in the NBA coming up real soon. And I think a guy like Tyler Herro, people will blush at him making $25 million a year, but like you're going to start seeing guys making, $40 million on the regular, $50 million on the regular because of the TV rights deals. And you're going to be like, all right, not such a bad deal for Tyler Herro. Also, I think that the other play of this is, okay, well, what about Donovan Mitchell? Because that's kind of the last orca that's out there for the Miami Heat, potential orca that's out there for the Miami Heat this season. I am interested in a couple of things that have come out. We know that Donovan Mitchell has been down here in Miami a ton, played in the Miami Pro League, played on Bam's team in the Miami Pro League, where they were both a little giggly when Brandon Marshall was asking if they were going to play together. We know that they're very close. They're working out in Kentucky this year. And I'm not ruling out Donovan Mitchell plays for the Heat one day. I think I think that is definitely possible. And when I thought that this whole D-Wade secret ops thing was going to happen, I never envisioned it really being this early, that they were going to pull the plug on everything. And you're seeing, the reports of what Danny Ainge is asking for Donovan Mitchell. And, if he's looking for a crazy amount of picks that you don't have, and you're seeing the Heat, they're like not even on the odds of this. They're not even in the reports of this. I don't really think they're in the game for Donovan Mitchell right now, at least at what is being asked for. Like, there's this report that comes out yesterday from John Gambadoro, who is Suns reporter. He was a lot into the DeAndre Ayton stuff. So, he's a credible guy. And he says a couple things on Donovan Mitchell. The Hawks, Heat, and Kings are not interested, contrary to reports. Knicks still have the best package to offer, but other teams are interested, like Cleveland, Washington, Charlotte, the Lakers, and Brooklyn. And no, the Jazz never asked for 7 first-round picks. I don't believe that the Heat aren't interested in Donovan Mitchell. I think that is stupid. I think that's an untrue statement. But I think that the idea that they're going to get Donovan Mitchell, if that is the draft capital that Danny Ainge is asking for, because they're in different places than the Utah Jazz. Than the Brooklyn Nets. Brooklyn Nets, their draft capital is already sewn up. They want to get players that can help them win on this roster. That's why they were asking for established guys already. With the Utah Jazz, obviously they want to get a ton of picks so they can get in the game for any of these players. They're going to blow this puppy up and just go with a complete rebuild and get themselves in basically a Boston situation like they had with getting the guys that they have now. But the Heat not being interested in Donovan Mitchell, no sale on that. I don't believe it. that they'll never be interested in Donovan Mitchell. I think that they like the player a lot. He obviously likes Miami. He's obviously got a very close connection with one of Miami's best players. Saw him having dinner with Jimmy Butler this year. They share a trainer. So I don't buy that they're not interested in Donovan Mitchell. I just think that they probably see the writing on the wall of what is happening right now, and the energy is, all right, we're gonna go team run it back. You guys like ribs? You like ribs? Because it's run it back time, son. Run it back, son. That's what's going on. As Pat Riley said, runs it back with his wife every week, and the Heat are ready to run it back. People are going to freak out about not having the 4 thing or not having the big established next to Bam. I think in time that'll come. I think that they've shown that they can make that move and have it fixed by a finals run. You know, remember that year that they went to the finals the first year in 2020, their starting bigs were Myers Leonard and Bam Adebayo. Myers ended up getting out of the rotation, ended up getting hurt, and it ended up being Bam and Jay Crowder. And it had, bore a lot of fruit. I don't know if going the Jay Crowder route again is the best way to go. But look, Jay Crowder's been on very good teams since he's been on the Heat. There has been a lot of lack of success for having Jay Crowder on your team. So I do think that with training camp coming down the barrel, we're about little over a month away from getting to it. I do think that it's important for the Miami Heat to extend Tyler Herro. I think that they should, if they are going to go in this run it back mode and we like our team, I think it's important to establish that you love Tyler Herro. I think that is the important thing here. I think that having him flapping in the breeze all year, I think, the Heat haven't had a publicly disgruntled player in a long time. I think that would make for that because he wants a couple of things. I'm sure he wants to start this year, which I think they should. And I think that he wants an extension, which I think they should. I think that you do have to appreciate the guys that have gotten you there. And I know what the response will be there. Tyler didn't get us there last year in the playoffs. Okay, but he was very important in the regular season, and the Miami Heat being a 1 seed was a very important thing. And he is 22, going to be 23 this year. So let's allow for some growth there for the player. Let's give some grace there in that this guy can get better. And I think that it's important to show that you believe that he can do that. I think that this team knows that they have a guy who is, despite all the snark on Twitter and Instagram, for the most part, this is a very beloved player by the fan base. A lot of 14 jerseys in that building. Probably, I would say, was getting the biggest pop of any player in the building up until Jimmy Butler had his performance in Boston and got his ovation for Game 7. Most of the time, Tyler Herro gets the biggest ovation. That was the first time I had genuinely heard Jimmy Butler had taken him over as far as warm reception from the fan base, big-time intros. I think for this team, though, for this franchise, you have to let Tyler Herro take those next steps. You need to have him have the narrative around him that he is a starter. Whether the team wants to go out here and say, oh, 6th starter, and he is a bench guy, and Charles Barkley going from saying he's plays against scrubs to he's an all-star, can't really make up his mind. I think that you need to put that narrative aside. Put him as part of this starting lineup with Jimmy, with Kyle, with Bam, and then whatever the 4th piece is. And then you do that with also investing in him. And it doesn't mean if some whale does come along and you believe it's an immediate upgrade over having Tyler Herro there, I don't think it means it's off the table. I don't think that, and I don't think that with the position the Heat are in, I don't think that it means that there won't be another guy who comes along who says, Miami, that's the place I want to be. And call me crazy, but maybe this gets into the point where you don't want to trade Tyler Herro and that he does take the steps that you want to see from a young piece and a young blossoming star for your team. And if that's the case, that's a win-win all the way around. But I think that going the DeAndre Ayton route for the Miami Heat here and saying, nah, we're not really sure, go earn it, I think that's only going to end up biting you in the ass. It typically does. This has happened with John Collins with the Hawks. This has happened with DeAndre Ayton. Like that whole put it on off thing, like you end up having to re-sign him anyway in restricted free agency, and then you're locked up and you're even less flexible than you are if you would have just taken care of him early. So I think from all parties, I think for optics, I think for flexibility, I think for confidence in your team. I think for all of that stuff. And also I think that he's a good player. I think he deserves the extension. I think that's another thing that's established here. I think that Tyler Herro is not some guy who's like completely undeserving of making a lot of money. He was a very, very important piece for the Heat last year. And I think that you look at the age, you look at the jumps that he's made from year to year, I think you should have a little bit of faith that he's going to be able to do that, and especially do it in the postseason next year. But to sit here as a fan base and be like, oh, well, you got to show me in the playoffs, buddy. All right, well, that's not realistic. And you look at a lot of these teams that are investing in their young guys, they don't get half as far as the Miami Heat do. So, interesting fallout from the Kevin Durant thing. But now I think it is time for the Heat to really show that they like their team and that they got love for Boy Wonder.